morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Patrick Khalife. I'm R&D Director at In'Tech Medicals, and I'm here today to introduce you the Wayvio technology, new innovation from In'Tech Medicals that we started 3 years ago right now. So Wayvio is a new technology that we integrated inside our instruments. It's based on electronic modules with sensors, microcontrollers, and RFID memory. And it acts like a black box in our instruments and in the trays to be able to show their reliability, sterilization cycles after cycles, and use after use. Few products must be more carefully tracked than medical instruments. I mean, whether it's for patient safety or regulatory compliance, those instruments must be accounted for identification, life cycle, usage, and everything. So if in the medical environment, any mislocation, instruments missing or misidentification can lead to waste of time, waste of money, and maybe worse. So that's why In'Tech Medicals, more than just designing and machining instruments, case and trays and handles, we try to integrate to our instruments smart modules, smart electronic modules, in order to prove time after time, usage after usage, that our instruments are still effective. So that's why we developed Wayvio. So the idea behind Wayvio is having part of RFID identification, so RFID tracking, knowing that what's inside the box, knowing what's the reference of the tray itself, but also smart instruments, giving you data on how many times it's been used, how many times it went to autoclave, and how many times inadvertent event occurred, like the instruments fell on the ground. So let me show you a little bit how it works. So you need a RFID UHF reader with an application that In'Tech Medicals developed for Android and later on for iOS devices. So you just have to scan the whole tray. You will get all the UHF tags that are inside the box. If you validate, it will tell you that the kit content is valid, telling you that each instrument that was supposed to be there is actually there. So if I do the same, removing one instrument, it will tell you that the composition is invalid, and will tell you that the polyaxial driver that I just removed from the box is missing. That's the Wayvio module for the tray. So this module contains a thermal sensor and a microcontroller in order to count the number of sterilization that the whole tray went through. So that's what you have when you scan the tray. It will tell you the last sterilization date. It will also tell you if one instrument inside fell. So this torque limiter is equipped with an acceleration sensor. So anytime the instrument falls on the ground, it will detect it, record it in this memory, and when you scan the whole tray, it will give you a warning on that. So if you push the detail button, you have all the instruments inside. So here is how it looks on a bigger tab. So you have the whole list of instruments inside. You have also a layout picture to help you recompose the tray instead of relying on what's etched inside the box. And if you just look at one instrument precisely, you will have a lot of data from UDI to internal references. When the instruments was first put on the field, what was the last synchronization date, the number of time it's been sterilized, and for this instruments, the torque limiter, how many times it's been actually released. So let me show you how this part works. So this is the torque limiter in situation. I can just scan this precise instrument. The application will show you that this torque limiter had 167 releases. So if I'm at the operating room and the surgeon releases 3 times, so those 3 releases has been counted, and we're now 170 releases.
And the battery?
So this little icon shows you the battery. So the battery that is inside those smart instruments have been done to be autoclavable. So all the electronic inside is fully integrated. The surgeon has no need to power on, power off the instruments. The battery has no need to be recharged. For Wayvio, all the electronic has been fully integrated. So the surgeon has no need to power on, power off the instruments. So we needed a battery that is fully autoclavable. All the electronic inside is fully autoclavable, and the whole instrument has been validated, so it will last at least 500 sterilization and 6,000 releases for the torque limiter. So from an OEM point of view, the torque limiter today is a really struggle for them, because as they don't really know how many times the instrument is used, they base their recalibration policy only on time. So every 6 months, for example, they will remove all those torque limiters from the field, replace them by other instruments. It takes time, it takes money, and in fact, maybe half of those instruments just stayed on the shelf. So you take those instruments and pay money to recalibrate it, and maybe they've never been used. So with that technology, you will recalibrate those instruments only when they are really used, effectively used. So let's say instead of having a 6 months policy for recalibration, you will have a 1,000 releases policy. So for sure they will save money. For sure you will be sure that those instruments that are on the field are calibrated the moment they need to do that. And on a higher level, knowing how many times those trays are sterilized give you an overview on the rotation rate of those trays. So every time I scan a tray from every place, every hospital, those data from this device go directly to a distant server. So from your office, the same manager is able to see all those trays and what is the rate, the rotation rate of those trays. Then he will be able to decide if you need to remove some tray from a hospital and take other one and put them in another healthcare center to be sure that those trays are always rotating the most they can. All right, so today, aside of identification and tracking, you will get the number of times the whole tray is sterilized, the number of times one single instrument is sterilized, the number of times the torque limiter effectively releases, and also if I let the torque limiter fall on the ground, it will count also some inadvertent event or use. The next step is having this technology integrated in most of our instruments at In'Tech Medical. That means we could have instruments that are impacted and count the number of times it's impacted, the level of impact you would have on those instruments. We are also working on strain gauges to integrate on some instruments, giving you how many times a rod gripper or a rod cutter would be used, what was the level of distraction, was it in conformance with what was required in the specification. So starting for this torque limiter, we have a wide array of possibility to integrate Wayvio in tomorrow in most of our instruments, whether they are identification instruments or just smart instruments.
So do the smart instruments, I'm looking, they're overmolded for the torque limiting device. Do all the instruments need to be overmolded? And if not, what system do you use to be able to track like the UDI or lock number?
Yeah, so for smart devices, as we need a battery and electronic chip with some electronic, we need to have a little space to do that. So those smart instruments would definitely be overmolded. But for identification and tracking only, we will be able to integrate little UHF chips that are as tiny as you can see here. So whether it will be on a thin amount of silicone or glued directly to some metallic parts, we would be able to have 100% of the instruments that are in the case at least equipped with an identification tag.
So another question I had was, so that one, that scanner device, where would it be used? Where is it used today? Is it in a OR? Is it in a reprocessing area? Is it at the customers?
Well, if the aim of this whole technology is to have real-time data, we need to have the whole process actors having a real need to scan it. So we really developed the application or the software so that every member of the chain will have a real added value at scanning it. So whether it's the nurse for recomposition at the hospital, whether it's people at the warehouse to be sure that those trays came back from the distributor and then knowing exactly when it left the shelf. We added also the capability to add comments. So after the surgery, if the surgeon just say the nurse, please put that the release button here was a little stiff. So we made it available for them just to click on the torque limiter and click on the release button and say we had a problem with that. So all those data will be directly sent to the data server and in real time. As long as anybody on the process chain has a real value added to do that, we were quite optimistic so that all the stakeholders on the reprocessing chain will have a value added to.
I have a question more on the potential savings for our company. So we know that there are some very high costs associated with the management of the trays into the market. So how can your solution can help us to reduce the cost for us as far as supply chain?
Yeah, well, as we've been consulting our customers for 3 years now with some prototypes, and from those conversations with them, we understood that just controlling the tray after getting it back from the loaners, most of the time it will take you up to 45 minutes to recompose a complex tray, verify that every instrument is there, that every instrument is functional. So as I showed previously, having a 3-second scan of all that and being sure that all these instruments are inside, for each time and each tray that you have to control, that's a real gain of time. And the sooner you end finishing controlling the tray, the sooner the tray is ready to go back to the field, and that's what the end user is waiting for. So right now, if you don't have any question, maybe you will have some further. So you can go on the wayvio.com website. So you will have a summary of everything I explained today, and you could also send an email to have more details. And maybe tomorrow you will be interested in testing our technology. We're right now for the torque limiter and the tray module in a limited release phase. That means we're able to choose some customer, provide them some devices and help them make a decision evaluating the real added value that Wayvio could have for their business.